Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 6th chapter, text 16, chapter entitled Prahlad Instructs His Demoniac Schoolmates. Vidvan Apitang Danuja Kutambam. Vidvan Apitang Danuja Kutumbam. Ushnan Swa Lokaya Na Kalpate Vai Ushnan Salokaya Na Kalpate Vai Yak Sriya Parakya Vibhina Bhavas Yak Sriya Parakya Vibhina Bhavas Tamak Prabhadyeta Yata Vimudha Tamak Prabhadyeta Yatak Vimudha Vidvan Apitang Danuja Kutumbang Ushnan Salokaya Nakalpatevai Yaksviya Parakya Vibhina Bhavas Tamak Prabhadyeta Yata Vimudha. Please chant. Vidvan Apitang Danuja Kutumbang Ushnan Salokaya Nakalpatevai Sarvya Prakya Vibhina Bhavas Tamak Prabhadyeta Yata Vimudha Vidvan Apitang Danuja Kutumbang Ushnan Salokaya Nakalpatevai Yaksriya Parakya Vibhina Bhava Tamak Prabhadyeta Yata Vimudha. Vidvan Apitang Danuja Kutumbang Ushnan Salokaya Nakalpatevai Yaksriya Parakya Vibhina Bhavas Tamak Prabhadyeta Yata Vimudha. Very nice. Ladies, Vidvan, knowing the inconvenience of material existence, especially in household life. Api, although, itam, thus, Danuja, O sons of demons, Kutambam, the family members or extended family members, like one's community, society, nation, or union of nations. Bhujnan, providing with all necessities of life. Salokaya, in understanding himself. Not. Kalpate, capable. Vai, indeed. Yak, he who. Sriya, my own. parakya, belonging to others, vibhina, separate, bhava, having a conception of life, tama, nothing but darkness, prapadyeta, enters, yata, just as, vimudha, a person without education, or one who is like an animal. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O my friends, sons of demons, in this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education have the propensity to consider, this is mine and that is for others. Thus, they are always engaged in providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life, just like uneducated cats and dogs. They are unable to take to spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. Purport. In human society, there are attempts to educate the human being. But for animal society, there is no such system, nor are animals able to be educated. Therefore, animals and unintelligent men are called vimudha, or ignorant, bewildered, whereas an educated person is called vidvan. The real vidvan is one who tries to understand his own position within this material world. For example, when Sanatana Goswami submitted to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his first question was, Kayami, Kene Amaya Jare Tapatrai. In other words, he wanted to know his constitutional position and why he was suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence. This is the process of education. If one does not ask, who am I? What is the goal of my life? But instead follows the same animal propensities as cats and dogs, what is the use of his education? As discussed in the previous verse, a living being is entrapped by his fruitive activities, exactly like a silkworm trapped in its own cocoon. Foolish persons are generally encaged by their fruitive actions, karma, because of a strong desire to enjoy this material world. Such attracted persons become involved in society, community, and nation, and waste their time, not having profited from having obtained human forms. Especially in this age, Kali Yuga, great leaders, politicians, philosophers, and scientists are all engaged in foolish activities, thinking, this is mine and this is yours. The scientists invent nuclear weapons and collaborate with the big leaders to protect the interests of their own nation or society. In this verse, however, it is clearly stated that despite their so-called advanced knowledge, they actually have the same mentality as cats and dogs. As cats and dogs and other animals, not knowing their true interest in life, become increasingly involved in ignorance, the so-called educated person who does not know his own self-interest or the true goal of life becomes increasingly involved in materialism. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises everyone to follow the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Specifically, at a certain point, one must give up family life and take to the renounced order of life to cultivate spiritual knowledge and thus become liberated. This is further discussed in the following verses. Srinvata Sukata Krishna Punya Shobana Kirtana Rudyantakstoya Bhadrani Vidinoti Sutsatam Nashtak Preshova Jeshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtaki Om Jnana Tamandasya Gnana Shlakaya Chakshurma Taminadasma Shri Gurve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachavam Pangrum Bangate Gurum Yakripatamam Bande Shri Gurum Denatarnam. Translation again. All my friends, sons of demons. In this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education have the propensity to consider, this is mine and that is for others. Thus, they are always engaged in providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life. Just like uneducated cats and dogs, they are unable to take the spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. This very nice instruction, very appropriate, especially in the Western countries. Prabhupada was speaking only to the sons of demons. By his unlimited capacity to appreciate the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he took the order of his spiritual master as his life and soul and went to preach to the sons and daughters of demons. Prabhupada had some very great affection for Prahlad Maharaj. In Mayapur in 1976, he was describing how Prahlad Maharaj, such a young boy, only 5 years old. But as Prabhupada began to describe this interaction between Prahlad Maharaj and the demigods who were pushing him forward, they were all afraid to approach Lord Nrsimhadev. But as Prabhupada began to describe, his voice completely choked and he became silent. He couldn't speak. And then when he could regain again his consciousness, he went on to say that he's not ordinary, he's Mahajan. He's not ordinary. So in that same way, in that same mood of Prahlad Maharaj, who wanted to deliver everyone, who didn't want to go back to Godhead alone. He didn't want anything. So Prabhupada gave up everything and came to the West to preach in such a manner and in such an expert manner, just to attract the minds of these sons of demons. So who else could do such a miracle like this? It's inconceivable. There's some fan not coming properly in the fan. So and we know the purport. We don't want to read too much into it. Prabhupada's mood was the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. There's no doubt. He was that selfless person. He was fearless. Like Prahlad Maharaj was fearless, Srila Prabhupada was fearless. We saw him in every circumstance. He could confront anyone. I remember in Bombay, he was talking to this one famous yogi, Yogi Amrit Desai. Very popular person. He also came to America. He used to visit our temples, but he was always surrounded by women. Always surrounded by women. So he tried to engage in some useless, meaningless talk with Srila Prabhupada, thinking that, like others, Prabhupada would agree with him or praise him, and Prabhupada immediately cut into him and let him know that his actions were unacceptable in the Vedic context. That this so-called yogi, surrounded by women and making all concessions to push forth some bogus impersonalist philosophy. Because ultimately it is all, no matter how they code it, so many people there engaged. Prabhupada is very funny when he says these things. in Mayapur again, he was talking, and he said, I don't want to name these persons. But then he names them. He says, I don't want to name these persons, such rascals. But they say that this Aurobindo is as good as God, such rascals. Like this. So he had probably knew exactly how to give us the Vedic context, like Allen Ginsberg once called this Hindu granny wisdom. Hindu granny wisdom, just like your grandmother. Everyone remembers what his grandmother told him. Some very short but very meaningful sayings. So many people who had been to India, like Allen Ginsberg and Kirtanananda and Hayagriva, they were familiar with this concept. And Prabhupada appeared like that, a very friendly person, very welcoming, outgoing, embracing, not standoffish like these other gurus were there. Because many gurus were there on the Lower East Side. We used to see so many. And many early followers came from those groups also. After hearing Prabhupada once, they never went back. It was night and day. Actually, night and day. I remember, for better or worse, one of the first persons I heard the Hare Krishna mantra from was Allen Ginsberg, because he was chanting on the Lower East Side this Hare Krishna mantra, along with devotees. You know, but that is what it is. But Prabhupada was able to change everything at that time. As soon as he came, the whole mood of the East Village changed. We were fortunate to be present at that time to experience that dynamic. And these landmarks are there, and everyone should go and appreciate if you've never seen. Now it's a little different. Back then, the neighborhood was very rough. Nobody went there, especially no yogis from the Upper West Side. This was a place of all bums and hippies, derelicts. But he was praised by people like Allen Ginsberg and others, that for having this unlimited compassion and this transcendental insight to be at the right place and at the right time. This is one of the special features, that here Krishna is directly guiding his pure devotee. This was not by accident that Prabhupada came to the Lower East Side, and after his frustrated time on the Upper West Side. Because first Prabhupada, after coming from New Jersey and some different temporary situations, he ended up in an office, not a residence, an office. And you can't imagine how austere these conditions are. Not a place that has a kitchen or even a shower, just a bathroom, a toilet and a sink. Sometimes we have to try to put ourselves, not artificially, but when we think that we have it difficult, somebody's complaining, oh, it's too hot in Vrindavan, or it's too cold, or it's too this, it's too that. We have no appreciation, that means, for what Srila Prabhupada endured to deliver this message. Otherwise, we could not complain for 1 second. We're sitting in a very nice situation. Now I see the ashram. I see so many air conditioners and air coolers. There was none of that back in the days. But that is a different thing. The point is whatever is required to push on the Sankirtan movement, we can accept. But we should not complain. And anyone who complains, essentially, there's a letter on Srila Prabhupada's desk, and he's writing to this one devotee, and he's telling him straight away that I can understand that all your problems is because you're not following. You're not following. So my only advice to you is that you should chant your 16 rounds and try to follow the program. This is ultimately if there is some lack, you have to examine the situation. Honestly, let's put it like that, honestly. Not trying to, don't go soft on yourself. You know, sometimes we see people can be very critical of others, but how much introspection do they themselves possess to look inward? You know, this is something that we should adopt very carefully. Of course, we don't mistake it for being lenient, because Prabhupada said finding fault means finding fault where there is none. Finding fault where there is none. That's what finding fault is. It's not that constructive criticism is disallowed, but finding fault means finding fault where there is none. Just for the sake of trying to put someone down so that you can feel good about yourself. This is a type of demoniac mentality. That conquering, that Ishvara Hamaham Bhogi mentality. That I am the center of the universe. Everything revolves around me. We want to be like Srila Prabhupada and Prahlad Maharaj, full of compassion for the falling living souls. This is the hallmark of the devotee. Tikshasva karunaika. Tolerance and compassion. These first two things. So how can I go any further without first achieving at least these two things? So it is not by accident that they have some numerical order. Just like Sunday, Monday. Prabhupada always uses that argument, that the sun is first, and then the moon in distance, Sunday, Monday. So tikshasva karunaka. So if one is complaining, then how is he tolerant? If every little thing, oh, this prasadam is not properly spiced, it's not hot, it's cold, it's this, it's that. So many things, just for the sake of finding fault. This whole material world is not a fit place. So we have to adjust our consciousness in order to achieve the platform of appreciating what is my position and how can I serve the spiritual master. Every time I think my favorite chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam is first canto, second chapter. It is like, for me, summary study of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like second chapter in Bhagavad-Gita. Again, I don't know the correlation, why it seems like that. But second chapter in Bhagavad-Gita is also summary study of Bhagavad-Gita, in a nutshell. Even like this chapter shlok, but even more so. Just to read the second chapter, I feel like I have regained strength from like Sanjeevani, like taking some nectar. Totally refreshed. Mind, body, soul, everything. So one has to know how to and where to find that nectar. I mean, there's so much nectar. We're reading Krishna book, we're reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, but I want the nectar that gives me the strength to act. You know, because I like Krishna book, but I'm not gonna imitate Lord Balaram and go visit all the holy places and let the Battle of Kurukshetra take place someplace else. You know? I want that in knowledge which allows me to defeat all my mental misgivings. Chindanti kovidastasya. Chindanti. You have to cut this hard knot, this hridaya granthis, this hard knot in the heart. It is not an easy knot to cut. Why does it say to cut to pieces? Because the famous story goes back to Alexander the Great. Does everybody know who is Alexander the Great? He was a warrior in ancient times. He conquered much of the known parts of Central Asia, up until India. India, he was stopped by various things. But one quest, because they have these riddles and puzzles, it avoids a lot of bloodshed. If you can solve this riddle, then everybody goes back to where they started. No war. So there was this object called the Gordian knot. And this Gordian knot was a very elaborate knot, tied up in such a way no one could untie it. Many had tried and many had died. Because that's the goal. If you don't untie this, we kill you. So they presented to him, you have to untie this knot. So he drew his sword and boom, and he slashed this knot with one cut. Immediately, the knot was untied. They didn't say how he had to untie it. They just said, you have to untie it. And therefore, he conquered that part of the world without any other endeavor. Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar. So for us also, what is that main obstacle? To sever this hard knot in the heart. And what is that hard knot? Why do we give this prayer, Chaita Darpana Marjanam? Why? What is the heart? The heart is the receptacle for all the dust accumulated from millions of births. Actually, the heart is the seat of the mind. The seat of the mind is not the head, not the brain. So the seat of the mind is in the heart. So we have to cleanse the heart and cleanse the mind. And then we can act with confidence. This is key to success in any endeavor. No one can preach if he is not convinced. That's why Ganesha is recommended to do a certain actions in Krishna consciousness in order to develop his consciousness, so that he can preach, that he can argue if necessary, to defeat others. Otherwise, if he is defeated, then what happens to him? He goes away. Many times that is the technique of the so-called people who professionally deprogram devotees. If you're a Kanishta, it's easy. They just put arguments that you cannot answer. You know? You cannot explain to them the nature of consciousness and who am I, who is God, and what is my relationship. That Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, these three ingredients that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta said are the essential, preliminary studies. And one has to know these three things, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Then he can preach. Krishna will use him as an instrument. Of course, he has to read, has to study. And then all this realization will be available on demand. Ask any devotee who's there doing book distribution, doing Sankirtan. They're not practicing what to say to every person. Sometimes, as an exercise, you might consider, what would the conversation be like if I met the Prime Minister of India or the Prime Minister of England? But most times it's spontaneous. You meet a person and all of a sudden they want to speak. And so you try to give them, honestly, whatever little realization you hope that they can accept according to their situation. What can you give them in 2 or 3 minutes? But something. I remember being so impressed by the devotees when I tried to defeat them with my Mayavadi arguments. I was not prepared. I thought, what capacity, intellectual capacity, can these people dancing in bed sheets have compared to me in college, student of philosophy, working as a library technician in the largest library in the United States, almost in the world at that time, and reading so many things, but all nonsense, but fancying myself some intellectual. So I was not prepared, and I was defeated. I didn't let on I was defeated, but I knew that I was defeated. And so then, by that, I started to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because I said, this person has something. Well, what does he have? And then I remembered, okay, he gave me this card. That was one of the things. In those days, I don't know what we do now. We used to have special lugdu in a package with a card. And every devotee, they would pass them out. So I remember on my lunch break, taking that card and sitting in the park behind the library, this big park, Bryant Park, and chanting the Maha Mantra. Just chanting and listening, not trying to think of anything else, just trying to hear the mantra. And the experience I had, which I'm sure other devotees have had, was that brought something very unique that I had not experienced before, but the sounds of the city disappeared. Everything was gone. It was just me and this sound vibration, this Maha Mantra. I thought, and I wasn't sure if that was just something that was normal, that everyone who does it chants that this is the effect of the meditation. Because in the past, years before, the meditation we had, you close your eyes, you touch the tip of your nose, you press your eyes. There's so many bogus things. But I never got that one-pointed, that vyavasayatmika buddhi. That never occurred. So I appreciated that there is something in this mantra. And because of that, then I went to the temple. And then again I engaged in these devotees, and to my estimation, these were the most knowledgeable persons in the world. And I felt at that point relieved that, that this is something that I can take up confidently. And when I took the Bhagavad-Gita home that night, it was confirmed that this Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyaksha Bhagamam Damyam Susukam Kartamavya. Of course, I wouldn't read that till many chapters later into the book, but it was obvious just from the beginning that this knowledge was the king of education, the most secret of all secrets, the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. I had never wanted to involve in religion after so many bad experiences. But now I found real religion, Dharma. So this is what we have to be prepared to study sufficiently, because if not for that devotee, I wouldn't be here. If not for those devotees, you wouldn't be here. So we have to pay it forward. This is not a closed club that we're happy that we don't want anyone else to come in. We want the whole world to come into Krishna consciousness. And not just Krishna consciousness, specifically ISKCON. This is the vehicle ordained by Lord Chaitanya and presented by Srila Prabhupada and continued to the best of our ability by all of us, every single person here, So the opportunity may come at any moment. You just never know who you're going to speak to and who that person is and how you'll influence him. And later come to know that he's some big government official. And fortunately, you behaved properly, as Srila Prabhupada would have wanted. So this is key. So this behavior, this ability, it is not an artificial thing that I put on my devotee persona, my devotee behavior for this audience and this behavior for this audience. No, the meaning of character is what you do when no one else is looking. This is the definition of character. What you do when no one else is looking. So you have to be a devotee all the time. This is not some uniform that when I take the uniform off, I go and I relax. I kick back. No. In the material world, yes, we know that. You know, the person comes home from work, he takes off his police uniform, his fire uniform, his whatever uniform, and he has a different thing. He's no longer that official person. But for us, we're devotees 24/7, 365. And if someone sees you when you're least expecting it, and you're not acting as a devotee that you're supposed to be, that can be very embarrassing. It can be very embarrassing. We're not Lord Nityananda, that we can go into the liquor shop and someone will say, oh. No, if they see us going into a liquor shop, that's a problem. And as God brothers and God sisters, we should point it out. Not that we should allow it to happen and just talk some Gramya Kata behind that person's back. No, we should approach, Prabhu, my dear God brother, what are you doing? Why are you going in there? It would be interesting to hear the story in any case. One time I found a devotee going into a liquor store. So I didn't want to go in. I waited for him to come out. So I said, Prabhu, what are you doing in a liquor store? And he was buying some spirit for making decoctions like homeopathic medicine. So I was happy that I approached him and asked. Because otherwise I would have thought he was going just for drinking purpose. He was buying this clear spirit that they use for distilling this. You put herbs in it, you put other things in it, and you get the essence. But that's okay. Better to get the situation clear rather than to keep a doubt. Like Srila Prabhupada gives that famous story that in 1933, Prabhupada was in Chaitanya Marg, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was also there. So Prabhupada said, I was sitting on my cot. Everyone knows what is cot, charpoy. I was sitting on my cot and there was big commotion. So I went to see, and there was big snake, and everyone was yelling, oh, snake, snake. And Prabhupada said, Guru Maharaj came onto the veranda. If anyone knows, go to Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's rooms are upstairs, first floor. So he came out to the veranda and he said, kill it. So Srila Prabhupada said, I was surprised. Guru Maharaj said, why he said, kill the snake? Because titikshasva karunakara. The devotee is compassionate. So why said that? And then Prabhupada said, but later, when I heard that verse, Vishchika Sarpa Hatya, then I understood that even a sadhu takes pleasure in the killing of the vrishchik or the sarp, the scorpion or the snake. Even the sadhu takes pleasure. Said, but Prabhupada clearly said, he said, but I had a doubt. See? I had a doubt. So Prabhupada, in two things. In other words, we don't give up, we don't surrender our intelligence. There's no problem in keeping a doubt, but the doubt should be cleared. Why am I keeping this doubt? What's the point? I'm waiting to open it up at a later date for some justification so I can say, oh, because of that doubt, now I have to leave. I cannot stay in the ashram. So you're keeping that doubt like some secret friend. A doubt is there to clear, to use your intelligence. It came, now understand, why is it there? And clarify. Is that clear? Does everyone understand? A doubt is not your friend. It's an indication that there's intelligence, but the real intelligence means to follow it through and clear it. Otherwise we don't want to go back into the material situation, become vimudha. Let's read that translation again. Oh, my friends, sons of the demons, in this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education have the propensity to consider, this is mine and that is for others. Thus, they are always engaged in providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life, just like uneducated cats and dogs. They are unable to take to spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. There's one interesting point. Prior to coming to Krishna consciousness, I was studying other philosophies. And in one philosophy, Taoism, it says, better not to do anything than to leave something undone. So try to wrap your head around that nonsense. Better not to do anything than to leave something undone. They're saying, in other words, just withdraw. Don't do anything. Because if you do something, that means you're not doing something else. You can't save every starving person or every starving cow on the streets. So their philosophy is don't save any. But we understand from Krishna conscious philosophy that by watering the root of the tree, the leaves and the branches are automatically served. So when I read that, I saw that superiority of this philosophy over Taoism. Because that was one of the last hurdles. Because we were all involved in martial arts and things like that. So it's very clear. This was the most beneficial philosophy. Not for any selfish purpose. Because philosophers, ultimately, they're selfish. They want some ego gratification. I am so smart. I am so learned. Otherwise, why one is a Muni? To argue with other Munis, just to juggle words. You know? And pull apart their meanings and give different meanings. It's a useless endeavor. Useless endeavor. Mental fighting. Mental jousting. In the old days in Europe, knights, these guys who would wear this heavy metal armor, they would have these long poles called lances, and they would ride directly at each other in opposite lanes separated by a wall, and with this long wooden spear they would try to knock the other person off the horse. Because in battle you would just pierce him, so at the end of this jousting stick it was padded. So you would score the point and defeat your opponent by knocking him off the horse, galloping at full speed. So this type of fighting, this no different than these philosophers also. They're simply trying to knock each other off their horse. I have my philosophy, you have your philosophy. Who has the best philosophy? We're not interested in this. Anyone who reads Bhagavad-Gita knows that this is the best philosophy. And if he doesn't, he needs to cleanse his heart a little more. The requisite understanding is not there, the preliminaries. He has to eat more halava. Because that is the secret weapon, prasadam. When we came to the temples, we were fed sumptuously. And it was not just, we didn't know that it was the secret weapon at that time. Just we were visitors. We thought, this is very tasty. I'll eat as much as I can. And we used to eat so much and take so much home and just eat it through the week. And gradually we weren't eating anything else, just prasadam. And we didn't realize we were becoming purified. But it happens. And then all of a sudden your mind is at yes. Why am I wasting time outside when I can be living in the temple? It has the best philosophy, the best food, the best of everything. But one has to be fortunate. Manda samanda matayo, manda bhagya upajuta. And in Kali Yuga, how does one become fortunate? Kalera dosha nadi rajan asti eka mahagunat kirtanat eva krishnasya. Kirtanat eva krishnasya. So when we joined the temple, what were our activities? Out on the street, 5, 8, 10 hours chanting the holy name. This was the purification. This was the purification. And there was nothing artificial about it. Some people stayed and some people left. It's a natural process of selection. You have to develop the taste. Because once you develop the taste, even if you think of leaving, it's a very conscious effort. Why am I leaving such a nice thing behind? Why am I doing this? I have to force myself. I have to start to preach Maya to myself. Oh, you have this facility, you have that facility, but it's all Maya. You already gave it up once. What's that word? Vantasi. Vantasi. When the sannyasi falls down and again comes into whatever status of life, he's called Vantasi. No more sannyasi, now Vantasi. Means he eats his own vomit. He eats his own vomit. How abominable is that? Does anybody want to do that? I don't think so. So why would you go out again into the material world? We already finished that business. So we again come into Krishna consciousness and then think, no, let me do it in a Krishna conscious way. Yukta vairagya uchate. No, that's not how it works. That's not how any of that works. You don't come to spiritual life and again try to engage in material activities under the guise of spiritual life. This is not dovetailing. Whatever you're doing materially, aside from serving, especially I'm initiated. If I'm not initiated, I have an exit. I can walk out that door. But if I am initiated, I have already given my life and soul to the spiritual master. So anything else I do, I am stealing from him. Why does Prabhupada say a grahastha should get 50% of his endeavors? It doesn't have to be money, it can be time. But 50%. He told us you don't get married unless you can do more devotional service. This is not a license for sense gratification. So he was so strict. Why? Because he knew that otherwise you jeopardize your spiritual life. Because you become entangled. What does it say? This is mine, this is for others. Engaged in providing the necessity of life to their families in limited conception of family life. This Krishna consciousness is meant to break those misconceptions. This is our family. These are our family. We shouldn't be working for anyone else. If you have to work something for your livelihood outside, I was a grahastha. I also worked. But I was temple president, I was vice president. Whatever you do, you have to give 50% of your endeavors, whether it's time or money. Otherwise, there's no guarantee. Let's be clear, there's no guarantee. Don't think that just because I've taken initiation and put on this kantamala and I'm keeping my shika like this. This is not the all in all. There are words, you have to be careful. You see everyone, everywhere, all the time. Prabhupada used to make fun of the Sahaja in Vrindavan. Back in those days, there were no other persons engaged in activities comparable to the Sahajas. And they were very obvious to have their circle of dancing partners and always carrying their flute and dressed like Krishna, but always smoking bidi and keeping with women. So it's very clear. So one just has to be honest. Bottom line. That's all. It's not a difficult thing. No one has to tell you, just like no one has to tell you after eating whether you're full. I need to eat more, I need to eat less. No, when I'm full, I know. I don't need Bhakta Paul to tell me or somebody else to tell me. So if there's a question of honesty, you are the only person to answer that question. You are the only person. So are there any questions, concerns, criticism? There's a microphone here, the devotee in the blue kurta. You want to pass it back? Dr. Marcos? Hare Krishna. What's your good name? Raj Premadas. What a nice name. Braja Premadas.
So you mentioned the sun is closer than the moon. So should we have more love for the sun or more love for the moon?
I guess that depends on your personality. Some like it hot, some like it cool. There are people who are worshiping the sun, they don't even know it. Out in the Western world, everybody takes off their clothes and worships the sun. They think they're worshiping the sun. They're actually being cooked like a hellish planet. But they're thinking this is enjoyment. Just see the nature of illusion. And you're getting cancer. Now people are telling you, no, you can't do that. This is unnatural. But that's a different story. Very nice question, Brew. Thank you. What's your good name? Ravi Shankar. Hare Krishna.
I'm just trying to understand from this translation, then the conception and the love. Now, if you actually look at the synonyms, people are defined kutumba as not just the family, but also could be extended family, like the nation, society, etc. I didn't quite actually get that point. I was actually thinking that the moment that we say kutumba, as mentioned in the translation, it's limited to, say, for example, wife, husband, and the children. But the moment actually Prabhupada defined kutumba as just not that it could be extended family as well. So could you please touch on that?
Sure. Let's look at that and see. Like one's community, society, nation, or union of nations. The family members or extended family members. Sometimes, at least from my reading of this, Prabhupada is trying to allow us to see how others have been bewildered by expanding this misconception. So it may have been limited, in a sense, at the time of the Vedas, to one's extended family, without the larger concept that Prabhupada is speaking to in context here, where we have a world, millions of varieties of designations and nations, which didn't exist at that time. But because he's speaking to, for these time and circumstances, which is the spiritual master's specific qualification, by the way, And in Nectar Devotion it describes that to be able to present the message of Godhead for the particular time and circumstances to the individuals just so that they can understand it. So if we would understand it only according to my limited family, I might not appreciate how, just like how does a politician think who's thinking in that way? Because that encompasses his mentality also now. How does any of these, I mean, we can say, let's think of another example, but like, of course, United Nations, there's a body that likes to think of themselves as a power unto themselves. They have a term for it. It's called globalism. You know, and Prabhupada pointed out the folly that what United Nations? Every year more and more flags. So how is it united? But that extends from that concept because they don't know how to reconcile it. So he pointed out that we shouldn't just be concerned, because what if a person, like you see, many materialists, they think, let me give up my family. I'll go do altruistic work. I'll serve humanity. But that's not humanity. That's, what are you serving? You're serving your so-called extended misconception of an extended family. So without having the realization that Prabhupada gave us, one is again bewildered to think, yes, I will give up my selfish extended family and serve the greater good of mankind. But that's still Maya. That's still Maya. And you see so many of these people, they want to open up hospitals, they want to feed the poor, they want to water the leaf of the tree instead of watering the root of the tree. That's their basic misconception. Are you familiar with that shloka in Bhagavad-Gita? Essentially, that the reflection of the banyan tree on the bank of the river, with the roots up and the branches down. Okay, so there's multiple ways to see that delineation between, because everything appears to be the same until one gets that realization of the difference between para upakar, what is the highest welfare activity. Because dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. All these others are cheating, kaitava dharma. And that comes from this limited conception. This trying to serve the immediate family, the extended family, and nowadays they want to serve humanity. Not even that, they want to serve the whales and the dolphins and the minnows, and they want to save everybody. But they don't know that that cannot be done. It's just Maya to distract them. And foolishness. People are laughing at them. You're trying to save this fish. You have to water the root of the tree. That is the highest service. If someone says, no, but I'm doing such good work. I'm saving this and I'm saving that. No. Are you, just like the Taoists say, are you saving all of them or just a few of them? Because if you're not saving all of them, you're not saving any of them. They say, oh no, but they'll go extinct. Well, if they go extinct, I mean, they're supposedly scientists. That's evolution. But it's not really, because nothing is really ever extinct. It's just existing on another plane, on another platform. So it's like in some other world right now, there's the Pliocene period. There's the ice ages. There's the upheavals of the tectonic plate shifting. Oceans are being created and mountains are rising. And somewhere, someplace, some lungfish is going to crawl out of the water, according to the Darwinists. So nothing is extinct. It's just that you don't see it on this planet. But they don't have the intelligence to understand how life is existing everywhere. They don't even know every form of life that exists on this planet. Every day, they're finding some living entity at some blowhole on the ocean floor that has 10,000 degree temperature, that nothing can survive. And they're finding these living entities that are living in that. These are portholes of magma gases escaping from the core of the earth. Nothing can survive, but something is living there. So how is it? It defies all known science. So that's a very nice question. I'm glad you brought it up. But you see that how we become bewildered by trying to extend that. First it was my family, now it's this family, now it's all these families. There's no end to this misconception if we let it continue. Prabhupada was just pointing it out for us so we could understand. Any other questions, concerns? Hare Krishna. What is your good name, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. You were speaking about Krishna consciousness of that. We don't want only Krishna consciousness, we want that they should be ISKCON. So I find it that we have so many multi-millions of devotees who are having deeply their how they worship deeply, they follow the strong good and lessons, they do everything. So if you merge all those people in ISKCON, then we have multi-millions. You can see that we have multi-million people in ISKCON. Not only few Krishna consciousness, but in ISKCON. ISKCON is just like Prabhupada. We are part of Prabhupada. Krishna was having Yadu dynasty, now Prabhupada is having ISKCON dynasty, so we should.
Very nice question.
We should be.
Well, here, what comes to my mind is you have two components of any military. You have active duty and you have reserve. Active duty means I'm ready at a moment's notice to go into battle. Every day I am prepared. Anyone who's been in the military knows the difference. Reserve component, just like you have CRPF Jawans, they're not active, they're not patrolling. But when there's emergency, when there's some hartal, bund, some jamela, they all rush to that spot. Otherwise, they go back to their homes and they go back to their shops and they do work. So many devotees have gone into the Grahastha ashram and they're worshiping the deity. They're like reserve component. They need to finish that. Even the reserve component has to, in a year, go for training for 4, 6, 8 weeks to keep sharp, to keep skills. Right? So if someone is a Grahastha, then he should take special care that at times like the Gita Jayanti, for the Gita Marathon, he should be active duty, not reserve duty. He should go back and he should say, yes, I'm here. For 3, 4 weeks, I am yours. I report to the temple president. I report to the Sankirtan leader. Give me my books. I'll go out into the field of battle. Otherwise, if he doesn't do that, then he's no longer reserve. He's something else. We call absent without leave. AWOL. Absent without leave. Did someone, who gave you that permission? You took permission to become Grahastha? Did you take permission to now become useless Grahastha? I'm only busy with my deities. What about Krishna Balaram, Radhe Shaman, Gaurnitai? I don't do anything for them. I only do for my deities. These are my, who? How could they be your deities? No? Someone is thinking I have some direct relationship with Krishna. That's nice. We do. There's no doubt. But anyway, people have to consider very carefully who I am the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am the dog of my spiritual master. That is my position. So if you can justify your activities after saying that clearly, because the dog, he has no business except to follow the orders of the master. Prabhupada even gave that example that there's one old company, radio phonograph company, and there's a picture of a dog, and there's a speaker from an old record player. Nobody even knows what a record player is anymore. And that label was called His Master's Voice, HMV. His Master's Voice. So that is our desire. The closest thing to my mind should be Srila Prabhupada's voice. Not my mind's voice, not my wife's voice, or my boss's voice, or my children's voice. They're all there. But the closest voice, the one I hear first and foremost, should be Srila Prabhupada's. You know, sometimes you have to tune the radio station. You get static, you know, on either side. And you want to get it clearer, so you have to go through the different side bands. So you're hearing the static on this side, this is the wife, and then there's a static on this side, is the boss, the static is the children. So you have to get it just right, so you hear just Prabhupada's voice. You tune out all the other static, and the station is very clear. So that's how focused we have to be. You have to tune in. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Prabhu? What's your good name? It's on. We heard you. Yes. Hare Krishna.
So, I would like to know, like, when we talk about equal to different levels of devotion.
Yes.
How do one implement
To a senior. Very good question. Prabhu is asking that in regards to constructive criticism. How does one, if he's a junior, approach one who's a senior? And it depends on the relationship. And it depends on the person's humility also. Because there's no fault, there's no harm for a junior to take straw in his teeth, between his teeth, and approach a senior and say, my dear Prabhu, please dissolve my doubt. Please clear my doubt. But if one is in a situation like an ashram, and there is another intermediary who is my superior, I am working under someone else. If that is my immediate superior, and I don't feel confident to tell him, then you try to find someone who is that person's equal, who you have some relationship with, who can appreciate your concern confidentially and relay that information, okay, or that question or that concern. You don't keep it inside. You either take it directly to the person, or you take it to another person who is equal, who has the same level of compassion, who will approach it as it should be done. We don't have to be diplomatic and politically correct in all circumstances. We have to be honest and straightforward. But it should be done in a correct manner, with humility and consideration for the time and circumstances. Like you said, if I'm a junior, so I have to approach it as a junior in a very careful way. If it's a friend, I can just say, hey, slap him on the back or in the back of the head. What are you doing? Kya kare? It's not. In 10th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, text 4 and 5, all the qualities of the living entity are described there. I suggest you, when you get a chance, Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 10, text 4 and 5. In the first quality, intelligence, Prabhupada defines intelligence as understanding things in their proper perspective. And then he goes on to describe satyam, truthfulness, as being able to speak the truth without any consideration for so-called time and circumstance. And the example he gives is that if a person is a thief, and he is identified as a thief, that is the truth. Why is that the truth? Because it benefits him and it benefits others. If you don't identify that issue, then he is liable to steal from someone else. So you have not accomplished anything. You have actually become complicit because you have not spoken up. You saw that the person was a thief and you didn't advise that your friend, he's staying in the same house, and all of a sudden next day everything is gone. And your friend says, why didn't you tell me he was a thief? Oh, I didn't want to call him a thief. Prabhupada said, to call a thief, I can read that. It's only a few lines, because we don't want to extend it too long. Everybody's waiting for prasadam. But we can do just quick. And if they hear us in the kitchen, they'll hold prasadam for us. I have to tell Saranga Thakur. The Sanskrit, 10th chapter, text 4 and 5. Buddhir jnanamassamoha ksama satyam damaksama sukhang dukham bhavo bhavo bhayang chabhyam evacha chabhayam evacha. Translation: intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. Purport: the different qualities of living entities, be they good or bad, are all created by Krishna, and they are described here. Intelligence refers to the power to analyze things in their proper perspective, and knowledge refers to understanding what is spirit and what is matter. Okay? Big thing. These are keys. I'm just going to go to Satyam because we don't want to. Yeah. Satyam, truthfulness, means that facts should be presented as they are for the benefit of others. Facts should not be misrepresented. According to social conventions, it is said that one can speak the truth only when it is palatable to others, but that is not truthfulness. The truth should be spoken in a straightforward way so that others will understand actually what the facts are. If a man is a thief, and if people are warned that he is a thief, that is truth. Okay? That is truth. Although sometimes the truth is unpalatable, one should not refrain from speaking it. Truthfulness demands that the facts be presented as they are for the benefit of others. That is the definition of truth. Is that clear? Srila Prabhupada ki.